All right, testing, 1 2, testing, 1 2. Good afternoon, testing. Testing. Facebook, we here. Let me check. Good afternoon, everyone. Redoing it. You know how I get down. I'll explain it in a second. But I had some technical difficulties earlier, and over here in the Move Swiftly world, we uh we focus on quality. We don't focus on rushing through our work. I pride myself in making sure I'm practicing what I preach. And even though I could have kind of rushed it once I got the internet working and all that stuff, I decided, hey, let me make sure I have time to really break down everything, because what we're talking about is very important. As you see in the thumbnail, all right, importance of valuing relationship over religion. It is very, very important, and we're going to dive into all of this. So welcome back. Good afternoon, everyone out there. As one, Crookshank here, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former Division I college football player, and current 5-time published author and educator. We are back for another Tackling Turnover with Teamwork. All right, I believe this is episode 6 or something like that. I believe I'm around episode 6. Go 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Normally I do them in the morning, but this morning had some technical difficulties. And I'll dive more into this on tomorrow's Move Swiftly Thought. But in the middle of a recording, in the middle of a live, and the Wi-Fi where I was at the school that I teach at, the Wi-Fi just kind of skips on me, and then I had to stop, and it was taking too long. And even though I could have came back, I was like, you know what? No, that's just not how we roll here, because I don't want you guys to think I'm rushing and stuff like that. So made it a point to say, hey, let's just take our time. It wasn't the first time that it happened, so I'll dive more into that concept and that principle tomorrow morning when I give my Move Swiftly Thought. Regards to today, I want to make sure I pick up where I left off in terms of valuing the relationship, right? Valuing relationships and not necessarily valuing religion. All right. So before we do, business owners out there, if you are listening in, if you're tuning in now and you have yet to get your free guide, make sure you go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. That's freeguide.makeyourmove.com. As you can see there, you will be getting a free 1,000% free guide on how to use the 10 best ways to use innovative teamwork to reduce the turnover in your business now. Meaning, if you are sick and tired of constantly having to replace staff members over and over again, if you're sick and tired of having people come into your business, hiring folks that are not motivated, that don't have a desire to be there, only there for the check, you need to have this guide in your hands, because there are the 10 best ways in which you can start implementing some of these things today. And that's what you need to have happen now. All right. Next thing, if you are in the West Palm Beach area, if you're living in the West Palm Beach area, we are starting our free boxing lessons in less than about 10 days. Yeah, actually 10 days from now, Saturday, the 23rd, we'll be doing it at the park. Make sure you hit that QR code. It's free, 9 a.m. every 2 weeks, starting the 23rd. And we'll give you more. If you're interested in doing that, make sure you contact me, and we'll get this thing rolling. I'm actually, saying that kind of brings me to the topic in which we're going to discuss today, because we're talking about the idea of making sure the relationship element, making sure you're focusing and valuing relationship over a religion or a cult, or kind of being a part of something that somebody else is responsible for, putting your situation, whatever your situation is, putting that in the hands of somebody else other than yourself. And had it not been for me having that mindset, I wouldn't be able to have offered and created and become a group leader at this church and be able to offer these free boxing lessons the way I do, the way I currently am offering it. All right. I'll dive deeper into that at the end of the show. But before before I get into it, I do have to make sure I tell you guys about the concept of Wintrapreneur Wednesday, or explain to you guys exactly what a Wintrapreneur is. So if you don't know what a Wintrapreneur is, it's because you haven't been listening to me long enough. For the past 2 or 3 months at this point, every single Wednesday, I've given something called a Wintrapreneur tip. And it's a term that I, yours truly, as one Crookshank, has coined, called Wintrapreneur. And pretty much what it means is you take the concept of an entrepreneur and you take the concept of a person that you take the lifestyle, I won't say concept, but take the ambition and the goals of an entrepreneur, and you have a entrepreneurial vision, you have a result, you have something that you want to be doing later on in life, and you're really striving after, and you're really passionate about it, and you take that result and you align it with whatever job you may have, and you've been blessed enough to be in a situation where you can see a parallel between your entrepreneurial vision and whatever the job that you're working that's paying you every 2 weeks. You've been blessed enough to be in a situation in which both of those things align. That's what a Wintrapreneur is, and that's what I personally am. I have a ton of experience in the Wintrapreneur space. Normally, it's only called it's called an intrapreneur, but your boy, yours truly, takes his football background, takes his sports background, and aligns it and adds a W at the beginning, and we're calling it Wintrapreneur. All right, so comes to being a Wintrapreneur, I got at least today's Wintrapreneur tip. I got to take you to some political news, some politics. All right, I can talk about myself in terms of the tip and what it is I've seen and what it is I've been through, but seeing that we're a week away from the election results, and in fact, Friday I'll be doing a deeper dive on how to actually teach and work with kids, work with families, work with people through these election results, because I see a lot of people doing it the wrong way, and I'll touch on that a little bit. I'll give more detail on that on Friday. But I saw there's some stuff that's coming out that really displays what a Wintrapreneur is all about. All right. So one of the people that I actually listened to a great deal of, I started actually listening to him maybe about 4 or 5 years ago when all the Black Lives Matter stuff was coming out. He did it. His name is, I think it's Andrew Cuomo. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. But I know he's a political commentator, but also his brother at one point was the governor of New York. So, there was an interview that Cuomo did with Ice Cube 4 or 5 years ago that really caught my attention in terms of the kind of journalist that he was, because he made an intro. This was the coolest part, but I don't have time to pull it up now, but he made this is just kind of what attracted me to his style, because he made an intro about Ice Cube, and he's getting everyone excited about Ice Cube coming on the show, and there were some things that they were saying about Ice Cube that you saw when Ice Cube came on camera he really didn't like. He goes, "All right, welcome to the show, Ice Cube," and then Ice Cube goes, "Your lead-ins are a little bit misleading." Because apparently, I guess he may have did some stuff with Trump, or may have had some conversations with Trump, and at that point, you say you're a Trump supporter, and all of a sudden the world's ready to tear you apart and all that kind of stuff. But there was some lead-ins there that insinuate or imply that he was a Trump supporter, whatever it was, and he wasn't there to deny it or argue with him. But he said it when he actually got on camera, and then when he said it to Cuomo says, "How so?" He didn't back down from the interview. He wasn't the type of guy that was throwing any softballs at him. And anybody that's a journalist that's on TV, especially nowadays, that isn't soft, that is actually, let me make sure everything is being recorded correctly, that's actually sticking up for themselves and not throwing these softball interviews and stuff like that. Anybody that's on TV like that, I just have no choice but to respect. Hold on one second. Let me make sure everything is. Yeah, so I have no choice to respect. So anyway, the news has been. Hold up. Let me make sure. 1 second. So the news has been swirling. All right, the Kamala Harris campaign is $20 million in debt, and he had a lady on the show. I think her name is Lillian. Again, I'm going to play the clip for you in a second, but he had someone on the show whose job it is to report these things, whose integrity is on the line, whose character is on the line, and all that kind of stuff. And she gives a perfect example on what a wintrepreneur is, because it's her responsibility. It was her responsibility to get money from these donors. It was her responsibility to report this stuff and report factual things. So now that it's coming out that the Harris campaign spent, I mean, again, they raised $1 billion, and now they're over. I'm just going off based on what the reports are. They're over $20 million in debt. She came on to his show to really report these facts, right? So pretty much what Como started saying was like, look, this is kind of hurting your party. This is not something that everyone can do. But she again, like I just said, is one of the people that is responsible for reporting the facts. And I want to play you this because it's important for you as the entrepreneur, as the business owner that's listening to me, or as the leader of an organization that's listening to me, to be thinking about how your role, your job, exactly what it is you want to do is not going to necessarily get you a lot of friends. It's not going to make it so people necessarily like you, but however, you will be respected and you will get to people to respect you just like this. So
that we were going to win up until I think 9 to 10 p.m. on election night, which is stunning. I had a DNC official telling me on the night of that we were going to win ruby red Iowa. And I was just I just was wondering if he thought I was stupid. He said it in earnest. And I also found out that the guy's being pushed out, the same guy who said that to me. Actually, I think the entire DNC leadership is going to change in the next couple of months. There's going to be hell to pay. This is not a 2016 loss. This is a shellacking. This is not a squeaker race. This is a resounding defeat. It pains me to say that. As you said, I put a target on my back. Actually, you'd be surprised that I have dozens of donors blowing up my phone telling me to stay the course. They may not have the guts to say it or the platform, but they want me to keep going because it's their money too. And we let the American people down.
And Lindy, I know that you're worried about staffers and people who need the money, unlike the celebrities who haven't been paid yet. So here's what I can do. Whatever happens next, you have a platform here to discuss it, okay? Whatever comes out about you or you believe that isn't true or whatever it is, you've got a platform here to discuss it. You just give me a call and you got it, okay?
Oh my gosh, that's so kind. That's so kind. Thank you for saying that. I'm also not worried.
Exactly. See my point. So first of all, the name was Lindy, political commentator. You guys can go look her up when you get a chance. But you clearly see that her being truthful and her more so focusing on what the reports are and being truthful with people, that creates opportunities for her, because his response was, I know what you're doing is not popular, especially among the celebrities, especially amongst the Democratic Party. It's going against what your party would probably want you to do. But if anything happens between you giving me, or you stating what you've stated, and then, if anything happens between now and then that you want to report on that you feel like it's not true, you have a platform. That's the concept of being a wintrepreneur. So now that I've gotten through the wintrepreneur tip, let's get into today's topic, because this one, it hits a lot of different chords with me. Because, well, first of all, we're talking, if you're just joining, we are talking the importance. We're talking the importance of valuing a relationship and not valuing a religion. And myself, the thing that got me thinking about this was actually the fact that I've been going to church every single Sunday for the past month. And I finally found me a church home. I go to Life Church in Wellington, Florida. And it was one powerful, when I say powerful, it was a powerful sermon this past Sunday, recording this November 13th, 2024. And it was an incredibly impactful one on me. And it got me thinking about this whole concept of idolatry. It got me thinking about this whole concept of, idolizing folks and how dangerous and how bad of a thing it is to actually idolize folks, because the campus pastor, shout out to Brian Atkins, the campus pastor actually gave the sermon this past Sunday. And man, he gave a tearful, powerful message. And the thing that really struck me about his message is it made it so I checked myself a little bit. I wanted to make sure I'm keeping focus, and it actually is what created this topic and what made me want to make sure I speak on this, because myself, I've had such a horrible, and I want to say horrible, maybe I shouldn't call it horrible, maybe horrible is the wrong word, but I've had a very difficult time finding a church home. I've had a very difficult time being in a religious atmosphere, or being in an atmosphere that had that claimed to have the presence of God, but wasn't very judgmental. I've had a really, really challenging time figuring out where it is I fit in. So, you know, when he gave his sermon and what he talked about, I'm gonna get to what he talked about in a second. When he really gave this sermon, it really made me check myself and make sure I'm living my life the right way. I'm doing the right things. I'm holding myself accountable. I'm being as accountable as I want my students to be. I'm being as accountable as I want my coworkers to be. I'm not just complaining. It really made me check myself, and I'll tell you why. So he gave, like I said, he gave a sermon, and I remember before the actual service, there was a lady who walked in, tall lady, like you could tell she was in the sports, athletic, but she looked so familiar. She looked so familiar. I swear, she looked so familiar. And I just kept looking at her. I'm like, I've seen her before. You know, again, not me. I'm a sports guy. I'm like, I've seen this lady somewhere before. And as she was a little bit in front, but she was close enough to where you could see her face. And I'm like, man, she kind of looks like Lisa Leslie. Now, if you don't know who Lisa Leslie is, you know, superstar, one of the pioneers of the WNBA, played at USC, and, you know, she was around during the time when the league just started and all that. So she's one of the pioneers of the league. And I remember actually I read her book, Don't Let the Lipstick Fool You, a great read, and I got a chance to, you know, see her story and what it's all about. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, is that her? Is that her? Because so she was with her husband and this guy, and I'm like, all right. So I looked her up, I looked up the name, and in fact, it was Lisa Leslie. So again, been years since she's really been relevant, but still my generation. I'm born in 1989, so I know who Lisa Leslie is, and she's still kind of a big deal, a major figure and all that, right? So I was kind of in a rush. I wasn't going to go ask for an autograph. I was, maybe if I had time, I would have, you know, maybe shook her hand and did something. I don't know. I would have just introduced myself, especially seeing that I'm one of the group leaders and I'm doing free boxing lessons there. I was thinking, okay, that could be an excuse to go talk to her or do something. But I did have to go, and I had to leave the service a little early because it was a Sunday, actually. And on Sundays, I do a live stream with, shout out to Kimberly Blue. I do a live stream with her every Sunday called Stay Hired Sunday, right? So anyway, you know, naturally, as we're going through the service, I'm still kind of like peeking at her. I'm like, oh snap, that is in fact Lisa Leslie. It's pretty cool, you know, because she's like a big deal. You know, I'm not super like fanboy or starstruck, but it's still like, all right, yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up that she's going to the same church I go to, and you know, again, I'm a group leader there, so it's pretty cool that, you know, I'll get to meet some pretty cool people. That's just like a cool thing to see. But all of those feelings of maybe fandom, or those feelings of idolizing a human being went away when Pastor actually gave his message. So he gave his message about a girl. Her name was Fiona, a girl that couldn't be more than those probably teenage years, who had lived through so much. I mean, lived through just a lot of medical complications. And, you know, Pastor is he's telling this story teary-eyed. So he uses Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys as an example, and he speaks on how when you're going through your fire in life, when you're going through whatever difficult time you are going through in life, it's not that God is going to just fix your problem, but you could trust that God will be there for you, be there with you through the burning fire, right? So he goes on does an incredible sermon on that, but then he gets to the story of this young girl. Her name is Fiona, and he shows a picture of her, and you can see there's some Olympic gold medals around her neck. It doesn't show the gold medal part yet. It just shows like neck up, but you can see like the medals are showing. And then he gives this story about, you know, how all the medical things that she had to go through. The young girl's in a wheelchair. There was a time where she spent months in a hospital with no parental supervision because she wasn't from the country, and she was in a situation where she couldn't you know, she just didn't have any family and all that kind of stuff. And eventually she got out the hospital and she rode the horses. She won, I believe she won some gold medals doing some horse riding, and, you know, just all these things that she was able to accomplish, even though there was so many medical complications. And here's the part where it was so difficult for him, it was so difficult for him to actually get through, was when it came out that she was one of the girls that got baptized last week. I mean, his face, I mean, at this point, he's in full on tears, couldn't believe it, because she was one of the young girls that got baptized last week. And then he points her right, he goes, she's sitting right there. She's sitting right there. And she just so happened to be sitting next to Lisa Leslie, of all people, this woman that I was kind of idolizing before. And then you see her, you know, going through all these things. And I was like, you see, that's the real person to kind of idolize. That's the real person. If I'm going to be praising or shaking anybody's hand after the sermon, that would be the person to shake hands with. And I explain that all to you because when we're talking about relationship, religion, and we could even throw politics in this conversation, you got to understand it's very challenging because a lot of these lines get blurred. You know, one of the things that I learned, and my mother really made it clear early on in life between myself and my sister, I grew up with an older sister, is the fact that she never once wanted to force religion on us. She never wanted to force religion on me and my sister. We were never the family that were going to church every weekend and, you know, making sure we did our Bible study or anything like that. That was not the house I grew up in. My mother made it very clear that she wanted us to walk that path on our own. She wanted to be that person she wanted to be the mother that kind of let go and said, look, if they find a church home, if they find religion later on in life, if they find something they believe in later on in life, it's going to be because of them, but not because their mother and father forced religion down their throat. And hearing that concept made it so, you know, whenever I would encounter a lot of these quote unquote religious folks, these, you know, holy folks, these people who grew up in the religious home, grew up in the church and all that, there was such a feeling of being judged on my end that now that I've found my church home, it makes it so I'm somewhat qualified, not somewhat, but very qualified to speak to you about why it's more so about relationship and not religion. It's not about who has the most friends or who has the most cult following or anything like that. What's really important in life is making sure you're following up and your relationships are built with integrity and you're doing things with integrity. That's going to be what's important. That's going to be what oh God, here we go again. I'm looking at my Wi-Fi now and connection isn't stable if you try plugging into your router. That's what's going to be most important. So we're going to ride this thing out regardless. We're going to do what we got to do. All right. So anyway, when it came to me, and then, you know, when I got recruited to go to the high school I went to Good Counsel High School, which is a Catholic school, and we started having to go to mass. And, you know, this was the first time that I read the Bible or was even, you know, had a Bible or even was around religion or anything like that. Yet I would still see people who were in the going church, in the God and all that. I would still see them doing things that were not of God, just not right things that were wrong in general. And that always threw me off because I grew up in a home in which it wasn't forced. However, it wasn't forced on me. And there would have been a lot of excuses for me to go out and do a lot of the things that I saw people doing that was at this Catholic school or any other Catholic school. You know, they're out there smoking, drinking every weekend, doing things, you know, partying, cussing, swearing. I mean, a bunch of stuff that I thought you don't do just because you're part of a religion, right? So that happened in high school. And again, it's high school. You can kind of move on. But then I went to a small liberal arts college, and the name Carson Newman College, which is a Christian liberal arts school. And this school, again, it was a lot similar to Good Counsel, where you had to put in a certain amount of time in mass. You had to have certain hours in which you went to church and all that. That was kind of a requirement. It was a requirement for us that freshman year to put in a certain amount of studies, and we had religion classes and Bible classes and all that. We actually had to do that first year at Carson Newman. And I remember meeting my first PK, which is what actually one of the things that I thought about as I was discussing, as I was thinking about today's live stream, what we're going to be talking about in the live stream, a PK stands for a pastor's kid. All right. And he, like a lot of like the, all right. So I'll just say it now, because of the three, he was one of the three pastors' kids that I've personally met. And I personally, again, I don't like to use the word hate. I don't like to bring a whole lot of negativity onto my platform, and negativity in terms of what it is I talk about, who I talk about. But these three people I truly cannot stand. I hate to actually say that. I hate to, bring that negativity into what it is I'm doing in my platform. But I had genuine problems with these two, problems that still to this day have not been resolved with those individuals, because these three were pastors' children, and the amount of judgment I had to receive from them, it's still things to this day that truly, truly hurt. Right. So the first one was the one I met at Carson Newman. All right. And there were several moments, and anybody that knew me back in those Carson Newman days, my freshman year, would tell you they know exactly who it is I'm talking about if they're listening. Shout out to you if you're listening, but they know exactly who it is I'm talking about. And he had a uncle, or his father was heavily involved in the church, and his uncle was the pastor and stuff like that. And he and I would go at it every single day. There was always this tone that he took with me that he never took with anybody else, because again, I guess he felt like, because my name is Aswand, or because I was never someone that claimed to be hood or claimed to be somebody that I wasn't. There was always this tone in which he took with me that he never took with anybody else. And he would cuss just as much as anybody. Like I'll just tell you the story just to kind of cap this real quick. Here was the thing about him. I remember first meeting him and him telling me, I'm a pastor. It's what I do. I'm a pastor. And I remember saying to myself, oh, snap, because again, I just went to a Catholic school, and, I knew getting to know or living a life where I was obedient to God. I knew that was something that I wanted to do even at that age. So when I met him and he calls himself a pastor, I'm clearing up my language. I'm not swearing around him. I'm just kind of keeping it PC. I'm keeping it PG, so to speak. Right. That was my first impression of him. The next time I saw him, it was in Knoxville, Tennessee. We were in a club named Tonic, and I see him, sweat dripping, getting twerked on the wall, moving, getting it in. I'm like, Pastor, the hell you do? I lied to you not. Ever since then, me and him ain't really. I ain't really vibe. Now, there was the one of the people that actually became my best friend. Shout out to B Smooth, who became one of my best friends. That his dad was a pastor too, and I remember I had him on the show a couple of years ago. The title of his episode is "Have Faith," and his dad's a pastor too. And me and him would chat about this stuff all the time. To where that type of judgment is where you got to make sure you're not thinking about religion, or you're not putting so much of your focus on religion and more so focusing on relationship. Because very similar thing happened to me when I first got out to South Florida. Again, there was a female that I had some interest in, as I would with anybody who wasn't Miami Heat dancer back then. But this female I had some interest in. She used to work at a church. Her dad pastored the church, and I was a member of the church. And again, long story short, I really probably don't have time to really dive into that. So I wrote about it in my book, but long story short, she was very similar. Her and her sister were very similar to the pastor's kid that I met when I was a freshman in college. Again, very judgmental, very much, oh, Aswan's only here for that specific reason. And eventually I just had to stop going. And for a couple of years before I decided to go to Life Church, I was very turned off about being a member of church at all, because that experience taught me so much about staying away from depending and getting too close to people. For a while, I needed to figure out how to work through these situations. And it wasn't until there was Paola. Shout out to Paola if you're listening. Paola is a consultant I met, and we met up about 2 years ago now when I first got to when I was about a year in West Palm Beach, and we had actually got connected through somebody I met at Hooters. And remember, she shot me a message because we had met up. It was her and her friend, and we had met up to talk business and some consulting strategies or whatever it is. And I remember she had texted me the next day because I was kind of explaining the same situation I just explained to you guys. She goes, God didn't let you down. When it comes to the church, those people, it was the people that let you down. It was the people in the church that let you down. So it's important for you to remember, never fall in the habit of thinking that God is punishing you, God is hurting you for whatever reason. God is simply with you during these dark times, during these challenging times, as supportive of whatever it is you're going through. All right, but don't think that your problems are just going to go away just because you are a part of a religion, or you feel holy, or you have an uncle, you have a family member, you have somebody that has indoctrinated you, made you go to church every Sunday. Don't think that things are just going to fall into place with you, which is what ultimately these previous people that I spoke about, that's what they did. All right, so in regards to how we solve the problem and how we should be living our lives, and when it comes to how we take advantage of these relationships, but get the most out of the relationships and the situations you've been in, you can look no further than my story. Everything that I just laid out to you. When I first got out to South Florida, there were two businesses that I was heavily involved in, very dedicated to. One was the business that I was actually, working. I was a trainer at 9 Round Plantation. It was owned by a black business owner. It's no longer in business anymore. But also the church that I just mentioned to you, I would go there twice a week. I go there three times a week. I'd be in that church Wednesday for Bible study. I'd be in that church Saturday for men's only Bible study. And then I'd be back there on Sunday morning for service. That's 3 times a week I was in that church, and they are no longer in business. They're permanently closed. And ultimately, I bring that up because even though both of those businesses are no longer in business, I was able to, again, construct this right here. As a group leader, I was able to walk in to a church, become a group leader, and align my ability to be a boxing trainer and be able to serve the folks that do come to this church regularly. That's what I mean when I say build relationships, and it doesn't just happen overnight. I gotta make sure I explain that to you all. So let me play you this clip real quick, because this is a clip when everything started to go south. I was like, it's very much like a lot of people that had to deal with COVID, and you had to pivot when it came to COVID. So when the coronavirus came, I wasn't a fan of but this was back when I was working as a 9 Round trainer. I did not at all like the way that this owner was handling this pivot. And at that point, I knew that I knew before COVID that it wasn't likely that he was going to stay in business long, but COVID kind of confirmed this. So what I decided to do, because he closed the gym. This is what he did during COVID. He decided that on Sundays, he was just going to suspend and close the gym and just close the gym. For what reason, I don't know how that was going to help the business grow by just closing it on Sundays. But that's what the guy did. All right. So anyway, because he closed the gym, I decided to offer free boxing lessons at Plantation Central Park. And I'd have, the members who were willing to come out, I'd have them come in. This was before Making Moves started. This was when I was literally just starting my podcast, just starting to be a content creator, really just getting some skin in the game. My first book had just come out, and I would have people come and do workouts. And the lady who actually gave me the idea to do it, she was a photographer, and she would come out, and she brought some people. She took some cool pictures, and these are marketing pictures I use to this very day. In fact, the one who was taking a bit, this is her mother right here. This lady right here, that's her mother. That's still there, and I still use it to this day. So I would come out. I would have the members come out for free on Sunday because the gym was closed, and we'd be doing drills just like this. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. Again, if you haven't registered, make sure you register. Make sure you register, because we're going to start doing those 10 days from today. But so anyway, what happened during that time, especially during that time, I was doing so many different interviews. I had so many different people on my podcast. I was reaching out to folks. I was just on it, doing it every single day. It was like this was a time where I was putting out new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. And one of the people that I had actually reached out to was a lady named Barbara Chapman. All right, Barbara Chapman, who's the founder. I want to say, no, she's not the founder, but she's like the director for the Kidney Foundation out here in Florida. And for those of you who don't know, some of you do already know this about me, is my father suffered. My father had a kidney replacement growing up. My father and my grandfather. My father he was on dialysis throughout from the time I was 8th grade all the way to when I got to my freshman year in college. It's crazy because I had surgery on my knee the same day he had actually got a kidney transplant. So, we were kind of in that same, I know very much about the kidneys and people going through kidney failures and stuff like that. I'm very familiar with it because I saw my dad live through it, get the transplant, and, God, good thing he's still with us. The Lord has blessed it to where he's still with us. But anyway, I reached out to Barbara and I was telling her a little bit about me and what I'm all about, what I'm trying to do with my platform, and what it is I'm trying to do with the podcast, with the business I'm starting and all that stuff, because I was just getting started. And she came on the show. So this was right before I moved to West Palm Beach, Florida, right? So moved to West Palm Beach, Florida because of a teaching position that I was offered. And, this is around COVID time. So I had to take it because I wanted to figure out how I was going to get my books, intellectual property and all that kind of stuff. So it made more sense for me to actually take it. But even though I wasn't living in Fort Lauderdale, I stayed in contact. Remember that relationship element, stayed in contact with Barbara, stayed in contact with the Kidney Foundation. And eventually she asked me to come back to Plantation when they're having the kidney walk. And it's the same park in which we're doing these boxing drills that I showed you. The same park is where they actually have the kidney walk, in which I've been going this. I'm actually recording this 13th. It's going to be the 6th. I'll be there this Saturday, and it'll be my 4th year in a row being the person that does the warm-ups and gives kind of a motivational speech before the people actually go and start the walk. So I'm going to show you a clip on, I believe this one was 2 years ago. Show you a clip on what it's all about, and then I'll close you out with some ways and some tactics and some things that you can be doing to make sure you're putting your focus on how to build those relationships and not letting the religion and the politics distract you from what's most important. All right, so I'll let it play.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
The kidney walk is not about kidney disease. It's about people with kidney disease coming together, united in one cause to celebrate the gift of life. People care about their kidney health, but also the kidney community. A lot of the people that come out to these kidney walks are kidney recipients, they're living donors, they're dialysis patients, they're health professionals, they're caregivers. So this is a community of people that come together.
My journey started in 2006. I got diagnosed with IgA nephropathy. They tried to medicate me for a while, but eventually I got on dialysis. I was able to be transplanted in July of 2014. I didn't like it at first. Obviously, you get a little bit down about it, but I realized what my options were, and I made my mind up that I was gonna see it through to the end.
I just enjoy having the opportunity to meet people, speak with them, and let them know what we offer, what we're willing to do in the community. I think that the Kidney Walk is very important to the community, and we're happy to help out in any way to learn more about the Kidney Walk, to learn more about supporting people that are on dialysis, to share that information with other people that are out there so we can see how much more community support we're able to provide.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because it was the same park. And I remember the first time I did it, because I would do these boxing lessons every single Sunday. And then when I remember leaving for West Palm Beach, and when I realized it was the actual same park, it was so great to be back in plantation, and now I'm training everyone, and now the speaking and all that, me being the guy. And believe it or not, that whole 1, 2, 3 love your kidney thing, I came up with like literally on stage. So on stage, and I when you're on stage, sometimes you run out of things to say and you're not really prepared or whatever, and you got to just make it work. You just make it happen. That's when you know you're a seasoned speaker. That's when you know you're really ready to go out and speak to an audience and really address an audience and address a crowd and really actually sound like you know what you're doing and really do it. I just came up with that on the spot. So every year now it's 1, 2, 3, love your kidney, right? So I'll close you guys out. Here's some things to really think about, all right? As you are focusing, and it may not seem like a big deal to you now, but when you mix in, when you think about today's topic, which again, let me reset the top. Today, again, we're talking the importance of relationship and not religion, all right? When you think about this topic and you think about how you go about doing it, the politics and the religion can easily start to distract you when it comes to how you go about building your relationships with people. All right, it can easily distract you. It's it's built, the social media, everything that's all around you. It's so easy to get distracted in terms of what it is you're about, what your principles are going to be, what your values are going to be, and how you're going to live your life. I strongly recommend you really start to think about the things that have had an effect on your life, have really made it so it really shook you in some kind of way, and they really pull on your heartstrings. Lean into those feelings and then go reach out to the people that you would love to work with, because that's all I did. That's all that happened. Again, you're talking about a disease in which I watched my father. It happened it scared all of us. Scared myself, scared my mother, scared my sister, scared my aunts, everyone that loves my father to this day. They can probably tell you what they were doing the day they found out the news, because we just never know with stuff like that. And as you lean into this and you really start asking yourself, how am I going to think? How am I going to live authentically? How am I going to be in a situation where I know I'm walking out of my doors every single day and I'm being me? I don't have to be nobody else. I'm being me, and I get to be me throughout the day. Lean into the things that really scared you as a child. Pull on those heartstrings a little bit. Really pull on those heartstrings a little bit, and then allow yourself to reach out to those folks from that perspective. And when you do that, I'm telling you, it'd be the best decision that you ever made, because it'll be such a fulfilling life. All right, so that's all I got for you today. Again, back on Friday the 15th, we're going to be talking how to guide people through these election results and all the stuff that I see coming out now. There's a lot I got to get to. Then I don't have time to discuss it with you now. Main website to check out to dive deeper into all my work, it's makeyourmove.com. That's makeyaMove.com. Once again, business owners, if you have not yet, make sure you grab your free guide on freeguide.makeyourmove.com. As one Crookshank, one and only Move Swiftly speaker, checking out. You guys continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon. Soon.